Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rabbi Dr. Joe Baba, your host, inviting you and welcoming you to another edition of DATI Civic and Peace Education Audiovisual Series, Episode 6, Instilling Discipline and Love of Country in Liberian Youth. Last week, we discussed good neighborliness and a just merit system, how to live with people in peace and harmony, and also in the society that there should be a just merit system where those who work hard, those who are qualified will be given the opportunity to exhibit their talent and qualification so that if the society can be a better place to live. We discussed how important it is to appreciate and respect your neighbors because they are the ones that live closest to you. They see your going outs and coming ins, and your neighbors are your first line of defense. While you are asleep in the day or at night, your neighbor may be wide awake. He may be the first to spot a visitor or an intruder walking up to your front or back porch, depending where your neighbor's house is located from yours. Also, based on your relationship with your neighbor, he may either alert you that your life is in danger, or he may sit quietly and let you face your fate on your own. So your neighbor is a very important person in your life. I know there are, some neighbors that can be a pain in the neck, but today we're going to be discussing how you can be disciplined and at the same time exhibit your love, not only for yourself or your immediate family members, but for, your neighbors, for members in your church, for anybody you come in contact with in life. You will recall that from last week's lecture, how the concept of family can be extended to people who live in the same community with us, apart from our immediate family members or distant relatives, because no man is an island entirely of himself. We are all interconnected one way or the other, and so many shapes and forms. One way we can establish and maintain good relationships with people in general, and in particular those that live in the same community as we do, is to be disciplined and to exhibit love and respect, not only for individuals that live in your household or community, but to exhibit love and respect for everyone you meet or interact with in your community, in school, in the church, the mosque, at the workplace, and in the entire nation in which you live. So the idea about family here in this discussion is extended not only to your blood relatives or distant relatives, but also to your neighbors, members of the same community that you live with. Those people, in essence, are your family. They are your family because you live in the same environments. You watch out for one another, and it's good for you to continue to respect one another. So people who live in Slipway, if I live in Slipway, people who live in Slipway along with me, they're all my family people because we live in the same community and we must look out for each other. People who live in PHP, that's a family, that's a community, but that community you are part of, your family is part of that community of families that live there. So you are families. So this thing about family is not just only confined to your brothers and sisters, but it's also extended to people who live near you, people that you interact with every day. When you wake up, get out of your house, they're the first people you see. If you live in Slipway, the people that live in Slipway are the first people you see before you get out of Slipway. to go to Loki Town or to go to New Crew Town or go to Cinco or wherever you go. And when you return, you're returning to your family, your community. And those people in your community are very important in your lives. It's good for you to be on good relations with them, to respect and love them, and that's how we're going to build this peace process. This peace process must begin with us, with you and myself. We must always show respect for one another. And one way to do that is for us to be disciplined and for us to also have love and respect for others. So these two words are very important in today's discussion because they can help us. If we get a better understanding of these words, they may help us to better relate to people around us and to give us a broader perspective of who a family member is. Sometimes your own blood relatives or your own brothers and sisters from mom and pop may not be as effective towards you as someone that you grew up with in the same community. That person could treat you better and love you more even than your own blood relatives and all of that. So that is why it's good for us to understand that we must open up our arms to others and respect them and treat them as though we would be treating ourselves and our own children or close relatives. So if we're going to be concentrating on these two words, discipline and love, then we ask the question, what is the meaning of discipline? Let's start with discipline. So discipline, DISCIPLINE, has several meanings. It means self-control or self-restraint when you are referring to the behavior of a person. So a disciplined person would exercise self-control or self-restraint whenever they are faced with an adverse situation. And living in a community, sometimes it's not everyone that is friendly or it's not everyone that is quiet. Some people are very noisy, some people are very boisterous, some people are friendly, some people are kind, some people are mean. So you have all these different categories of people or families that live in a community, and you live in a community with these families, and your family live there too. So for peace sake and for understanding, how do you deal with people of these different categories in your community? That's what we're talking about today, and we're saying that you can live better with them if you are disciplined and if you can show some love and respect to others as you would like for them to do for you. So when we talk about self-control or self-restraint, that refers to how you behave, how you control your behavior so that you don't get into any confusion with someone. Now, a person is said or believed to be disciplined when you, for instance, insult him in public and he exercises self-restraint and walks away. It takes a lot of courage to be insulted, in public or in the presence of so many people, and you just walk away without retaliating or without insulting the person back. Also, discipline can be viewed within the context of a field of study or specialty. So when you look at discipline also, it's not just only about your behavior, but it's also about what you are specialized in, what you take your time and efforts, to put more time in so that you can learn a trade or a craft that you can use, to earn an earnest livelihood. So discipline could mean your behavior, how you control yourself, and then it can also mean the field of study or specialty that you are, focused on. So for example, my discipline or specialty is in education and culture. But the reason why one's specialty is referred to as a discipline is because you exercise restraint and patience to study for years so that you may learn a special craft you can use to provide a certain kind of service to your community, nation, and people. So also the idea of discipline, it goes beyond just your behavior. It goes towards what you do. Whatever you're doing, you must exercise, you must demonstrate some kind of discipline, you must organize your thoughts, you must control your temper, your behavior, and don't just give up. Some people when they're doing a math problem and they're not able to solve it, they give up. But if you are disciplined, you will continue to keep working towards solving that problem. And that's what we're talking about also. So discipline goes across many lines. It may be your behavior, it may be you in school and learning, or learning a trade, but yet you must go by the requirements of those trade. And you see that the reason why a lot of people in post-war Liberian society are not disciplined because they just took the shortcut in life. And as you know, according to Liberian parable, shortcut killed deer. So that's why you have a lot of people out there that may have quote unquote degrees, but yet they don't know the material. They cannot even write a fitting sentence and all of that because they did not follow, they were not disciplined, in following the steps that are required to follow. Some pay money to get degrees and all of that. And that will not help you in life because when you clean to be a carpenter, you must be able to, create, objects, with your hands, through your creativity and all of that. And all that requires discipline. So discipline is very important, with respect to achieving peace and reconciliation in our society. And also, as I said, the reason why one specialty is referred to as a discipline is because you exercise restraint and patience to study for years. Some people don't want to study for years. They just want a shortcut. Oh, you're supposed to spend 4 years to get a degree. They want to get it in 2 years. That's lack of discipline. So that you may learn the special craft you can use to provide a certain kind of service to your community, nation, and people. Therefore, discipline within this episode applies to both the way we behave towards others and the importance of sacrificing our time to learn a special trade from which we can honestly earn our livelihood. And then I said the next word is love. We said that in order for us to really get along with people, we must be disciplined, and also we must exhibit love and respect for others. So what is love? Love has different meanings for different people. What this means is that people exhibit love in different forms. However, the perception of love that we are discussing in this conversation has to do with being devoted to people or something. So someone or something, being fond of a person, showing affection or passion for someone, like the way you may love your own son or daughter or your wife or husband. The word love in this conversation means to care for someone or something that has a significant value to you. Hence, because people have different ways of expressing love, your mother might whip you when you insulted an adult, not because she hates you, but because she loves you and wants you to do the right thing. So now we see that love, is about caring. That's the definition that we want to use in this thing. How do you love your country? Do you care about your country? If you care about your country, would you want to embezzle funds that are supposed to be used to develop the country? Or if you love your people, would you embezzle funds that were put aside to construct a hospital or a farm to market road? So and if you were disciplined, then you would not even think in that direction. So discipline and love are two important words for post-war Liberians, for people who have just come out of the ashes of war and bloodshed. You must care, you must love, and you must be disciplined so that we don't run into another, turmoil that will further destroy our nation and destroy our lives. So, but on the other hand, my mother, that we'll talk about different parenting skills. For one, parent, if a child insulted an adult, if that mother really loves her child and wants her child to know the norms of the society, you say, oh, no, you can't do that. Stop that. That's not good. You do not insult older people. Respect older people. Respect your mother and your father so that your days may be prolonged. That parent will take his or her time to explain to the child that what he or she did is not good. But there are some parents who are the opposite. For them, it doesn't mean anything. A child insulting an adult, and they let the child go on and mislead the child to think that insulting an adult is a very good thing. So parenting skills are very, very important, for modern day Liberia, post-war Liberia. The way how you bring your children up can help, if you bring them up in the traditions of our forefathers, that will preserve our history and our culture and our norms and values. Whereas if you let your child do anything, everything the child does is okay, that in essence will create a problem for the child tomorrow, because they will run into a lot of hurdles. It's not every adult or older person will take a nonsense from your child, so and if your child is exhibiting antisocial behaviors, that child will have a difficulty being accepted, or in the society, in the community, and all of that. So that's why we're saying that discipline and love are two very important aspects of our way of life that we must be very, very careful about as we move forward towards a new Liberia, a new society. So against this backdrop, love and discipline go hand in hand. The one complements the other in order to set a child on the right path in life. This is where the difference is between a child who receives discipline and tough love at home and a spoiled brat who ends up in prison or ends up being professional thief, criminal, because he or she did not receive the love and discipline they needed to be prepared for our ever-changing and challenging world. So now we'll talk about love, but then I just added a little category to it. I said tough love. Tough love is where, you love your child, the child is doing everything, fine, you love the child, but then the child does something wrong. If the child does something wrong, you as the father or mother must stand up and say, no, enough is enough. What you did is not right. Let them know there so that they understand that it's not right, so that they won't do it again. Instead of saying, oh, baby, yeah, it's okay that you insulted this older folk and this and that. And or when the older folk is complaining, then you, the mother, get up and say, don't talk to my child like that. After all, that he's not your child, that's my child. If the child does something, come to me and do this, those kinds of things give children the wrong impression about what is acceptable in society and what isn't acceptable in society. So the love, yes, love your child, but exhibit tough love, where when the child is wrong, they tell the child is wrong. If the child is right, tell the child is right, like that. Now, discipline and love must begin in the home. So you see, most of the time we say charity begins at home. And it's the same thing with respect to discipline and love. The discipline and love that you exhibit in the home will help that child, will mold that child to be a person who in return will be well disciplined and will be caring, because they saw the way how you cared for them. And children imitate adults. They are like sponges. They absorb whatever you do. They watch you very keenly. You may think that they're not watching, but they watch you very keenly. So that's why in the home, the parents in the home must always, exhibit a good relationship, cordial relationship, respectful relationship, and also must be very straightforward, in speaking the truth and teaching the children what is right. So therefore, just as it is said that charity begins at home, so must discipline and love begin in the four corners of our homes. When you and I were babies, we cried every time we were hungry or when we did not feel well. We refused to eat, and our mothers or parents, pampered us. They tried to figure out what was wrong with us, and they did the best they could to make sure we were happy and well, and our daily basic needs were being met. But as we grew older, our parents expected us to tell them if we did not feel well, and or to communicate verbally instead of crying. Hence, to reshape our undesirable behavior or crying whenever we needed something to or help, they will either ignore us or whip our behinds so that we might exhibit a more appropriate behavior next time. So in the process of discipline, when the child was younger, they cry, nah, because they wanted food to eat. But as you get older, your parents expect you to go a little step further, instead of say crying for everything, man, like that, for you to at least explain to them, mommy, can I have this? Or mommy, can I do this? Like that, so that there will be communication. So it's your responsibility as parents, to make sure that your children, grow up, age appropriately. That as they grow up, there are certain things they need to know. There are certain expectations you also want to make sure that that are met, based on their age group and all of that. And then on the other hand, if we do not discipline our children and allow them to grow up with the mindset that every time they cry, we are to treat them like babies instead of letting them to know in advance that this world is a tough world and that to survive, you must be disciplined and polite, then our children will not follow the right path in life. They will always want to take shortcuts in life because they lack discipline and love to understand the truths of life. So you also want to tell your children, oh, my dear, this world is a very tough world. It's not an easy place, and people don't just pick up money from the ground. Nothing comes to you on silver platter, etc. You need to let your children know the truth so that they can, grow up in the home and in the community and in the school, the church, wherever they go, so that they will understand that they need to adjust to circumstances from day to day, as they go along. So, for an example, when I was a kid, my parents started disciplining me from the cradle. When I woke up in the morning and did not say good morning, Ma, my mother would ask me whose home I was living in, hers or mine. Obviously, I was living in her home. And so she would say, when you get big and you get your own place, You can get up in the morning and not speak to your wife and children. But under my roof, when you get up in the morning, you will say zonzing, which is, good morning in the Crown language. You will say zonzing to me, she will say. Consequently, I learned how to say good morning to everyone I live or spend time with. And I found out it is a very good way to start your day, wishing everyone you wake up to see a pleasant day. That's what we call love as well. So what I'm talking about here is like, sometimes you have children, some children who are so very ungrateful and disrespectful. In your own home, they get up in the morning and they expect you doing everything for them and they expect for you to get up in the morning and tell them good morning. They come and pass by you, like June passing by July. That kind of thing that does not work. I mean, it never worked with me and my kids. They knew better, but I'm saying this because those kinds of things happen. And even there are times too that your adult children, people who get grown up, and yet they feel that they live in the home with you, as if to say they are the master of the home, and that without them you cannot live or whatever it is. So that's what we're saying here, that it's important, for you to teach your children the manners that they need to know how to deal with people, and to hopefully live in peace and harmony with people in the community, in the home, in school, in the church, at the workplace, etc. Another area of discipline and love that I learned at home is to share. Sharing is, so people are very selfish. It's the selfishness, that if it's not controlled, you get out there and you feel that everything is yours. Everything is me, 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 me. And that's the selfishness that is killing the Liberian society today. People are very selfish. They don't know how to share. The wealth of the country is abundant, but because we put people in charge who are very selfish, so they forget to know that the wealth that they are being in charge of is not theirs. It's the nation's. It belongs to everyone in the nation. It belongs to everyone in the community. Even within the community, when you have community organizations, there are people who are so very selfish that the things, monies and stuff that the people in the community raise, for the common good of everyone, they end up, swindling the money, taking the goods and using them for themselves. So this thing about sharing, is also very important, for you to help your children to understand that sometimes you may have, the other person doesn't have. You may have food to eat, the other person doesn't have food to eat. And instead of wasting the food, your food too plenty, I can't finish it, and you're wasting the food, dumping the food in the dump. That food you could also share with somebody to help make their day. So the idea about sharing, it falls in line with love, because we're caring. Also sharing, if you don't care, if you don't love people, you won't want to share with them. So that's why we're talking about discipline and love, and also discipline in the sense that you understand that, oh well, since I got enough here, more than enough for myself, let me take us some, and send it to Simba, so Simba can have something to eat too. That kind of thought, will go a long way in building up, the peace and tranquility of our society. Teaching our children how to love or care for others is very important, because what goes around comes around. Also, sharing in my home was a cultural trait, and that sharing idea is also an African cultural trait, because our people live in a communalistic society, not communist. I'm not talking about communist, communist. No, not communist, but communal, communal, is a process through which people share. They share, share goods and services among themselves, to be like a barter system, where if I have rice and you have bitter balls, I need bitter balls, and you need rice, I give you rice and you give me bitter balls. But in a communalistic system, like in the village, a hunter, when he hunts, and kills a deer or whatever, when he brings it, he does not only just share it with his immediate family in his household, but he will cut that meat into different pieces and things and send little bits to the town chief, to the other person, to other relatives, to other, or member of the town, like that. He will share that with them, the other person who has rice, when they come home to, they share their own food. And I remember visiting my grandfather in video or two for a town in Kanye in Grand Julia County. And in a month, every evening when the farmers came from the farm and the women cooked, my uncle down the town would call me, "Gadio, Daddy, Gadio, and they would do all the different, uncles and relatives around. When you're when you are the stranger in the town, they'll call you when their wives have completed cooking. They'll call you, invite you for you to eat. They share, that sharing thing is not something that we do nowadays, but that helped our ancestors to live in peace and harmony and happily, and they looked out for one another because they believe in a communalistic, way of life. So sharing is something that, is part of nation building, and it's also part of developing our relationships with people with whom we live in a community, our neighbors, etc. Teach your children to become law-abiding citizens. This aspect of our discussion is very important because we live in a post-war society, which unfortunately has not really, gotten off its feet as it should, because the decisions we made in the resolution, so-called resolution of the Liberian crisis, was erroneous in the fact that we elected people who were actively involved in the planning and execution of the atrocities and mayhems that took place in the country, which of course contravenes the Constitution, the law of the land. And as a consequence, children who were once 12 years or 2 years old when the war started more than 30, 31, 34 years ago, 34 plus 2, they are now 36, like that. So the concept about rule of law has still not been clearly expressed and demonstrated in post-war Liberia. So the idea about teaching our children to become law-abiding citizens is very crucial to the enhancement of the Liberian peace process. And I want to give you some examples here that may enlighten you on what I mean. For instance, almost about 40 years ago, my wife and I, newly married, my father called us to chat with him. One thing he said to my wife that I still remember to this day was, "My daughter, when your husband comes home and brings a bag of money, do not rejoice and say, 'Yes, we are rich.' Instead, You must ask your husband, honey, where did you get this money from? Or how did you get this money? If he tells you he stole it, ask him to take it right back because good name is better than silver and gold. From that day up to now, every check that I receive from my workplace or any 1212 money that I earn, I always give my wife an account of how I earned it because that was the way my father disciplined me. In Liberia today, how many wives or girlfriends ask their husbands or boyfriends who once was a poor church rat but became a millionaire overnight, honey, where is this money coming from to build this big mansion? Where did you get the money to purchase 3 Pajero Jeeps in 1 month when we did not have a bicycle and I used to sell ground peas and fish in Raleigh Town Market for us to buy a cup of rice to eat with mwe? How many of you women or men out there, ask your spouses who are in high places robbing the Liberian people and consequently creating hardship for millions of Liberians at home and abroad, how they got their money, how they got their wealth. Now, it's the same selfishness I was talking about when earlier, that selfishness now is the one that is also killing the Liberian society because now you see blatantly that this person didn't have a brass copper 2 days ago, but today they brought in $1 million, in the home. And you see that and you don't even ask any question. You are happy that the person was able to bring $1 million home, but you don't care how he got it, where he got it from, whether it was something that was supposed to take care of the hospital that he used the money to bring to you. You don't care whether it was the money that he was supposed to construct a school building so that children can have access to quality education. You don't care. All you want is you want that money so that you can live large. And while your neighbors, the children, the elderly, everybody suffers because that money was intended to do something specific in the best interest of the people, but now you are enjoying it, all by yourself without asking any questions. So this aspect, is very important. When my father told me that story, it still rings a bell, to me. And of course that he would have said that to my wife, at the time when we newly got married, I thought it was wisdom. And it is wisdom that when you live in the home, the women, that live with these men, that do these kinds of things, you need to ask them, say, what is it? What are you doing? You are destroying the lives of other people. You gotta be sincere and not just go for the material things and be an accomplice to the crime. So most of these things, when you do them without asking and or without giving your partner a good advice, about these things, it means that you are also part of the crime that the person is committing. Also, growing up in the poor slum area of Monrovia, where the bulk of Liberians in the community struggled every day to find something to eat, our parents disciplined us to be happy with what we got and to tell God, thank you. Some of the things that are creating the problems in our country is because we are not satisfied with what we have. We always want more, and we don't care how we get it. But when we were coming up, our parents told us that it's good, for you to be ambitious. It's good for you to want to be rich, but you must earn it honestly. And I will show you an example of how, my parents dealt with me and how our parents those days dealt with us, my generation, when we did something or when we brought something in the home that they didn't purchase for us. And they knew that we weren't working. So where did we get the money from to to purchase this stuff? They would ask questions, as I said earlier, how my father advised my wife to ask me whenever she saw that I brought money, huge amount of money in the home, or the material goods in the home. Yeah, he said she should ask me, how did you get them? Where did you get the money from to do it? Why? Because we're talking about bringing people up to be law-abiding citizens. So also, as I said, they will say, be thankful, thank God for the little we had. What this meant, be satisfied with what you got. Men, you must exercise restraint and patience. Do not go out there to steal or kill just to obtain something that you did not work for, or that does not belong to you. That's the first thing. When you're not satisfied with the little you got, you end up like that. Our parents taught us to work for what we want in life. And if you came home with a pair of scobies, we used to call sneakers scobies those days. If you came home with a pair of new sneakers, your mother or father will ask, where did you get the money from to buy these new expensive scobies? If you could not state or verify the legal means through which you got those scobies, your parents will ask you to take them back to where you got them from. And pray your father or mother does not find out you stole them. That will be another issue. Because as I said, in the home, that's where we learn all of these things about discipline, about love. And now watch what I'm saying. The parent that loves their child, or a parent that loves his child, will not say, oh, well, it's good that you brought this cookies. Wow, you got some more there, go and get some. No. If you love your child, you want to be concerned, and you know your child not working. But they coming in and bringing things, your daughter coming in, she bringing fancy things, well, earring, gold chains, and this and that. And you sitting down and not saying anything, not asking questions. That's what we're talking about, because that's very dangerous. That's what, and then eventually when the child gets pregnant, teen pregnancy, then you wonder why. But because you're part of that process, you didn't ask questions at a time to nib it in the bud, when it needed to be, or stopped immediately. You didn't do anything about that. So I bring the scobies in, and Ma said, where did you get the scobies from? So for instance, if I told my parents, I worked for Mr. Moses and he gave me $10 to buy my scobies, it wouldn't stop there. It would not stop there, especially with my mom, it would not stop there. She would say, who is Mr. Moses? Where does he stay? That is, if they don't know who Mr. Moses is, she will ask a kind of question. If you say he lives in Slipway, your mother or father will say, bring the scobies and let's go to Mr. Moses. That's how serious our parents used to discipline us. They will not take any answer. You will explain to them, you say, oh, well, I got this thing because I did a job for Mr. Moses and give it to me. Some parents say, oh, okay, no. My mother will say, bring the sneakers or scobies, let's go to Mr. Moses. And sometimes, as kids, we think that we're smarter than our parents, and we live in PHP. Now they say, where does Mr. Moses live? I say, oh, Mr. Moses live in Slipway. Just so that we would think that, PHP is far from Slipway. So, okay, I will let it go. No, my mother will not do that. She will say, get in front of me and let's go to Slipway to the Mr. Moses to find out whether he gave it to you for, because they really are concerned. That's love right there, to want to know whether you honestly worked, got the money to get it. Because if you did that and they found out that you honestly worked, and Mr. Moses confirmed, said, oh yes, this time, I was cleaning my yard, he came and asked me, say, Mr. Moses, can I help you rake the yard so at least you can give me something to buy my scobies? If he says that, oh, that's a good thing, because then you work honestly for it. and you can be you will get a good reward, from your parents for that. They just want to know that you did the right thing. So our parents were concerned about us growing up to be law-abiding citizens. That's the message behind the story that I'm telling you. So you go to Mr. Moses, and if Moses confirms that, oh yes, he did work for it, and I gave him a few dollars, she will tell that Mr. Moses, thank you for giving me the opportunity to work to get something, because now listen to what I'm saying. Your parents wanted you to work, the dignity of labor. That's what we're coming to next. So, but they will verify that, the kind of, so it was a kind of a disciplinary, thing that we went through all the time. Right? It wasn't just only in the home. It will happen in the school too, because in the school, the teachers were very devoted. It's not like these days, when some teachers don't care. But back in the days when I was going to school, the teachers cared a lot. They always wanted to make sure that you were okay. When you came to school, they wanted to watch the way how you were dressed. You got to be clean, well dressed, your shirt tucked in, and those days when we should wear those pants, our uniform pants, cotton pants, that we used to starch them and press them and look neat to go to school. And you will get a reward for that, for being neat. Anything that will make you look good, that will put you in the right direction, were the things that the elders those days used to encourage us to do. And because we did them today, that's why we're in a better position to explain these things to you. So it's the preservation of our culture that I'm talking about here as well, which is part of the discipline and love that we're talking about. Now, if you are a parent who encourages his children to acquire material things and money illegally, then you are not helping your children to become law-abiding citizens. Instead, you are encouraging them to become thieves and what Liberians call tifi Jan Koliko, or to become dishonest persons and criminals. Hence, by being lenient and unconcerned about the source from which they obtained money or material goods, you have done your kids a disfavor, and you are denying your children the discipline and tough love they need to become law-abiding citizens tomorrow. You see, so you see where this leads us to. Those things that I explained that my mother did, where she interviewed me, and if I said something and she didn't believe it, she would say, let's go there, let me make sure. Those are all ways of disciplining the child to make sure that I'm doing this, not because I hate you, I'm doing this because of tough love. I'm doing this also to make sure that you are well, examined, that you are refined before you get out there. Because when you get out there, there's so much temptation in the world. And I don't want you to be caught up in the wrong crowd at the wrong time. So that was the motive for that kind of a rigid discipline that our parents used to institute. The next thing is that teach your children to be honest and to appreciate the dignity of labor. The dignity of labor. In the above passage about scobies, parents who love and discipline their children will encourage them to find something to do to earn some coppers honestly to purchase a pair of scobies for themselves, like doing some things for an elder for a couple of dollars. Parents in the hinterland who are farmers begin to teach their children agrarian lifestyle very early. The boys accompany their parents, their fathers, to go and brush and fell trees, while the girls engage in fishing, cooking, and sowing and harvesting the crops when they are ready to be harvested. So you see, it's part of our culture. When in the hinterland, the families there, when it's farming season, the boys, early in the morning after they eat a little, final rice or something like that, the boys follow their fathers and they go to the farm to go and brush. The girls are at home, in the village with their moms, cooking, drawing water, doing all the different things before they can go to take the food, on the farm, when it's time for lunchtime and all of that. In the evening, they all come back together in the village, they cook and they eat and all of that. So everybody is involved. Our parents, our ancestors taught our parents, to be active, to work, to respect the dignity of labor, because that's how the family was able, because they lived, they were subsistence farmers. So they lived on whatever they grew. So, but if you didn't work, as a family unit, if you didn't work, or as a village, if you didn't work to grow your own food, then you will starve. The next farming season, you won't have food to even take you through, and you may have to go to relatives to beg for assistance and all kinds of things. So in our tradition, our parents, our ancestors taught our parents to be, to respect, to appreciate the dignity of labor. So that's another issue, that in disciplining your children or from the home and in the community, you want to make sure that they are industrious, that they should understand that there's more happiness in working for what you want than for you to go and steal, as people are doing nowadays. So you can see that there's a breakdown of our cultural values, because those things were not, they were not sanctioned, and glamorized as they are today in the Liberian society. Somebody that steals millions of dollars to the detriment of the health of the citizen of the country, you call the person honorable. We will come to another episode where I will have to explain to you what, the English language that we speak, which is not our traditional language, that people use words and don't even know the meanings of the words that they use. We will come to that, at some time. But right now, we're talking about discipline and love. And if you were disciplined, you will want to also appreciate the dignity of labor. In addition, folks, you want to teach your children that nothing is free in life and nothing comes to you on a silver platter. You must work hard or sweat to get what you want. There are no good shortcuts in life. The shortcut that I know always kills a deer, the Liberian man says. Well, let me give you an example also what the elders will do in the community. When I was a boy, about 10 years old, my uncle Joseph Wales's home was adjacent to ours. His wife, Auntie Alice, was a very good cook. Her fish gravy and cassava in the morning was the bomb. You could smell the sweet scent all the way in Kiki Yard from PHP. In order to share some of his breakfast with me, Uncle Joe asked me to rake the yard every morning for him to share his delicious breakfast with me. I never got the breakfast until I completed my assigned task and reported to him that I was done. Sometimes he would come outdoors to check for himself before giving me my breakfast. Hence, I always got a good days before going to school. Now, you can see that my uncle, he could have, given me, some of his breakfast, free of charge. But he wanted me to know that nothing was free. So in order for me to share, for him to share his breakfast with me, he said, well, Gade, I want you to clean the yard every morning. And once you do that, you can come and get your breakfast to eat something before you go to school. So I had to do something in order for me to eat the breakfast. It was not just handing the breakfast to me. That's what we're talking about the dignity of labor. So in that way, my uncle was teaching me that if I wanted something, I should work for it. and I worked, and whenever I worked, he paid me by giving me my breakfast. So that kind of tradition and habit began to grow in me. And I give you another example. On other occasions, my aunts, my uncle, Ente Zulu, who asked me to imitate a police officer charging a driver for bow-legged parking. And then they will pay me 50 cents for being a comedian. So just those little kinds of things, the older people will encourage us to do something positive. It's not that my aunties couldn't come and say, oh, God, yes, 50 cents or something like that. But they wanted me to, I was very active and, very funny, so every time they came around, they always wanted me to do something to entertain them, to make them laugh. And when I did that, then I got, a little reward. So you can see what that has led to up to today's day. Like the leading, playwrights in the country, in Liberia. And that was because my aunts, encouraged me. They nurtured my talent from small, and they taught me how to use my talent so that I can get money. So you can see that process, and that's what the older folks should be doing to the younger ones, the parents, the members in the community. When you see someone that is very talented, encourage the person in a way for them to be motivated to improve, their talents. So most of the time when we got cornered, then also the other thing was that growing up as a child in Morovia, our parents disciplined us to be honest, to speak the truth. And they always said, speak the truth and it shall set you free. Now, that is also important because that's part of discipline, speaking the truth or owning up to your actions, being able to accept your wrong. Those kinds of things were things that our parents, taught us to do. So most of the time when we got cornered to the wall for something we did and denied earlier, our parents would set an example and let us go free to reinforce telling the truth. So sometimes we say, oh, who took my money from the table here? Nobody wants to talk. I say, who took my money from the table? Your parent asking, nobody wants to talk. But say, okay, but then everybody will receive 15 or 25 lashes on their back. Then you get up and say, oh no, mama, I did it. And now my brothers and sisters, I don't want did it. Just by pointing, standing up to say, oh, I did it. Sometimes that will save all of you from receiving 25 lashes. That's number one. And number two, because you knew that they were going to beat you, but yet you stood up and you admitted that you took the money from the table. That in a sense may make your mom or your father to say, okay, you spoke the truth. Because you spoke the truth, I will let you go for now. But remember, this is not something that you should do. It's not a good thing. So speaking the truth, is also part of discipline. And it's an honorable thing to do, because then it also clears your conscience so that you don't feel guilty about, something that you've done that you hid from people, and now you got to live with it all the days of your life. So due to the discipline and love I received from home, I was prepared to go in the community to exhibit what I was taught, and more especially to resist peer pressure when asked to engage in unacceptable behaviors for which I was either advised or disciplined at home. I also began earning money from being creative, writing plays, organizing events, and by exhibiting love and discipline wherever I went. When other kids went on a rampage on the playground or in the community when our parents were absent, I demeaned myself because we always had an older folk or older brother watching to tell on you when you misbehaved. And when you carried yourself well, there was always a reward. Like your mother will kill a chicken and cook your favorite dish, you know, and all of that. So the idea also about rewards, you know, when you did something good, encouraged us to be law abiding, because we always wanted to do something good so that we can get a reward. Whereas if you did something wrong, you will not get a reward. You may get some beating. So the idea of discipline, our parents didn't play with it. They were very, very straightforward with it because they wanted us to be law abiding. So that's why if some of us are not part of the gang of Liberians who say, well, any dirty water can put a fire, you know, you can get rich overnight and steal huge amount of money to the detriment of the health of the entire nation with no remorse and all those kinds of things. You know, that's a breakdown of our moral, social, and cultural values. And in order for to reinstate those things, all these things that I'm saying in this broadcast, you know, are very important things that I want you, the parents, and even the young people to take into consideration. Because what also happens is that it's not just only the older folks must, you know, continue to preserve our cultural values, but you, the younger ones who have received good discipline and love at home and know the difference between right and wrong, you can be a youth leader. You can influence your peers on the playground, in the classroom, for them to also, you can be there. Oh no, this kind of thing is not good. You know, our parents said we shouldn't do it. You know, you can remind your colleagues as well. So it's everyone's responsibility, you know, to kind of redirect one another in the home, in the community, in the school, in the church, in the mosque, at our workplace. You know, there are certain times you go to the workplace, there are some people, some bosses who are so boisterous, you know, that they make you feel miserable. But if you are disciplined and you have some love in your heart, you know, you can always, you know, help another person who is feeling down, you know, oh, well, you know, come, let's sit down, let's have lunch together. You know, don't worry, everything will be okay. You know, let us, you know, continue to care for one another. We all need that care. It's not just one individual. We all need the care and love. Also, it's important for us to know that we must exhibit discipline and love across settings. Exhibit discipline and love across settings. So this is important. Say when you are taught a lesson at home, it does not mean that what you learned should only be applied in the home. No. For instance, if your parents taught you not to steal at home, it does not mean that it is only at home that you must not steal. Rather, your parents taught you that stealing was a bad behavior because they are preparing you to do the same when you come outdoors to mingle and interact with others in your community, school, church, mosque, on the playground, anywhere. You cannot say or think, my mom said stealing was bad in the home, but she did not say I could not steal, you know, when I come out in public. No, that is wrong, a wrong concept also. Whatever you are taught at home must also be applied outside of the home, everywhere you go. That's what we mean by exhibiting discipline and love across settings. The love that your parents showed you in the home when they care for you is the same love you should show to your neighbors, members of your community. The respect and things that your parents taught you is the same respect when you come in the community. You show that same respect not only to your parents, but to other adults and parents of your colleagues, everybody that you come in contact with, you show them that same love and respect. You must do it across settings, not just be a law-abiding child at home, then you get in the street and you are a lawless child. So, for instance, there's the issue where the issue of discipline and love comes into play. Most of the times we do not exercise discipline and love when we do unto others what we don't want them to do unto us. So I gave you an example of a story of where, for instance, you're in a home and your parents discipline you. When you get in the classroom, the teacher becomes like a parent to you, becomes a disciplinarian, watching you, teaching you, and all of that, like the way how your parents do. So you sit on the same row of seats with same way. During recess, while your classmates are playing on the playground and the teacher is having his lunch in the teacher's lunch, you bring your sneaky self to search Simway's book bag for what you did not leave inside your classmate's book bag. You open the book bag and you see Simway's car fare and you slip it in your pocket and go back outdoors to join Simway and other classmates on the playground as if you did nothing wrong at all. At the end of the school day, Simway looks in his book bag and the car fare says, "Find me if you can." Shocked, Simway tells you his car fare is missing, and he asks if you did not see his car fare by any chance. You look in Simway's face, eyeball to eyeball, and bluntly say, "No, I see no car fare. Why would I do that?" Simway lives on Jamaica Road, and he attends Daniel E. Howard Elementary School on Sekou Touré Avenue. You can imagine the distance. How will he get home? Those days, we did not have telephones, let alone cell phones to make calls in time of emergencies. So Simway must walk from Sekou Touré Avenue to Jamaica Road across the bridge. If you put yourself in Simway's shoes, how do you feel? How do you think Simway felt when he discovered his car fare was stolen? And if you were the classmate who stole Simway's car fare, how do you feel? Did you exemplify discipline and love towards Simway, your classmate? What must you do when a friend trusts you? Stab him in the back or look out for him? Now, this little story, tells you now this fellow child learned all the things the parents taught him at home. Thou should not steal, thou should not kill, thou should not lie, thou should not do this, that. And he comes to school. The friend goes out to play. He goes in the boss book bag and steals his money. And when the boy asked him, he didn't speak the truth. He said, no, he doesn't know anything about it. But what he did was lack of discipline and lack of love. Because if you love somebody, you will care for them, you will understand that Simway does not live near the school campus. He lives all the way from Jamaica Road, so he always got to pay his way to come and go back. Now that his fare is stolen, he doesn't have the means to get on a bus, or get a taxi to go home, so he has to walk. You're making Simway to suffer, to encounter difficulty, because of that money that you took. You took the money and you thought it was okay, but it's not okay. And this is what happens in a bigger situation in our society. People take things, take the money and take other things, and think that it's okay. And what is so very, very sad in the Liberian situation is that these people that do these kinds of things that cause us pains and all of that are the people you refer to as honorable this and honorable that. Now, because you glamorize illegalness in the society, the people have become emboldened to the extent where they glaringly, display their thievery they're stealing, ill-gotten wealth in your face, in your face. They bluff you. They get in their fancy cars and splash water on you and all of that. Why? Because you empower them to abuse you. You empower them to do something illegal, and you continue to get in line and vote for people like those. This is where we are with this whole issue. This is where we are with this whole issue. Things that we learned at home, we are not applying them. Back in the days, people respected their family names. The household you came from, you want to make sure that you displayed, that you exhibit the good qualities that your parents taught you, the discipline and love that they exhibited. You want to also reflect that when you got out. Today, how many people do that? So this is where the issue of discipline and love comes into play. Most times, we do not exercise discipline and love when we do unto others what we don't want them to do to us. The normal thing to do was for you not to touch or take somebody's car fare because it is not yours. However, if you were jammed and needed money badly, the acceptable thing to do was to ask somebody if he could spare or change after he deducted his car fare. You say after he deducted his car fare because you want to be considerate. You want to make sure that he got something to go home, and if there's any other little change, if he will give it to you, that's fine. But the idea is that you must ask for it. That's another thing that our parents taught us. The word ask, they made it an acronym. So ask is for you to ask, and it shall be given unto you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be open unto you. So asking, for something is better than stealing something. So if you want something from me that I have, the best way to do that is to ask for it, not to steal. So taking things that don't belong to you is theft. And it is a criminal act. And it's also a shining example of lack of discipline and love for others. Love and discipline come hand in hand. And what you learn at home must be continuously practiced everywhere you go to uphold your family name and to make your home, community, and entire nation safe. The role of government to discipline and love its citizens. Now, this is also important. We started from the home. We said was the family, was the parents had the responsibility to discipline you and show you love. Then we came in the school. There's the responsibility of the school to discipline and show you love. Then we'll come down to the government. It's the responsibility of the government to discipline and love its citizens. So this is where we are now as we approach, our conversation for today. In this episode, we discussed how love and discipline must begin in the home and then applied in a community and entire nation. We also saw that the responsibility of disciplining children and teaching them to care about themselves and others rested on parents and teachers and other role models in our lives. Notwithstanding, the government has a greater role to play in disciplining and loving its citizens to ensure that their daily basic needs are met and for the citizens' well-being, permanency, and safety. So the government is something like a parent. The government is the parent of all the citizens in the nation. So as a parent, when your child is sick, you take the child to the hospital. So as a government, when Liberian citizens are sick, where do you take them? Do you have hospital for them to go to? Or do they have to get on the plane to go to Ghana, to go to Nigeria, or other places for them to seek medication. If they have to do that, then what is your responsibility as the parent of the citizens? What is your responsibility? That is the question. These responsibilities and duties are vested in the various wings of a democratic and Republican government such as ours. We have a democratic Republican form of government. The executive enforces the law. So if the laws are not enforced in the country, then you know who did it, who's not doing their job. While the legislature makes the laws, so if we don't have laws to abide by, if laws are not created, then you know who did not create the laws, because every branch has its own unique responsibility. If there are people that were found guilty or that needed to be, judged, while the judiciary interprets the law, so then the judiciary is there to make sure that all those cases and things that are there in the court or whatever court of law, that those cases be determined so that the right kind of judgment and punishment can be made. You remember we said that in the home, when you did something good, your parents will reward you. If you did something bad, they will punish you. So it's the city now, the government now is the parent of all Liberians. If you do anything wrong, the government will punish you. If you do something good, they will honor you and give you all those medals of the pioneers and this and that. That's what those things are there for, to encourage citizens to be very productive and to be law abiding. So together, all three branches must be cohesive in disciplining its citizens and ensuring the citizens' needs are met. The needs to be met issue is what we have a problem with in Liberia. The needs of the people are not being met, not being adequately addressed, because there's so much selfishness, lack of discipline, and lack of love. So therefore, we will come to an end for today regarding this, with the role of government to discipline and love its citizens. In the next edition, we will discuss more about the type of government we have and the responsibilities thereof, as well as your responsibilities as citizens of the Republic of Liberia. Thank you so much for listening to this program. This has been your host, Dr. Joseph Tomongalade Baba Senior, Executive Director of Decorative Artists Theater. As I close, I want to say thank you to all the DATI peace advocates in Liberia, in Benandru, the Benandru chapter, statesman, Meshach C.A. Elliott and his team. Want to say thank you for a beautiful job you are doing in the southeastern part of Liberia, and for our acting director for the Monserrato Dubois chapter, statesman Henry Fire Tamba. You and your team will say thank you very much for what you are doing, and may God richly bless all of you. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk next week. Bye-bye for now.